Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Boyos Discuss, the podcast where we pick a topic and then shoot the shit about it for a while. This week, we're continuing the Spring of Swayze with 1987's Dirty Dancing. But before we get into that, I'm Matthew, and I'm joined by my co-hosts Ben and Other Ben. How are y'all doing?
Good. We've all had margaritas.
Yeah.
I've had about 30 ounces of tequila slushy, so I'm feeling real warm.
Mm-hmm.
So, basically just some, normal facts before we get into the synopsis for the movie. In 1987 money, it had a budget of $4.5 million. And at the time, the average cost for making a movie was actually about $12 million. That's one of the things, when you sort of read about the making of this movie, they kept chipping away at the budget.
Who's they?
The producers, they were just like,
the studio and stuff.
Yeah. It ended up making, though, a insane $214 million at the box office, which is just, you look at last week with Red Dawn, which was like, it did fine.
Yeah, we were like,
kind of doubled.
We were like, it's arguably a cult classic, but like this is like, oh, this was a
Massive.
Cultural phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And adjusted for inflation, that works out to about a budget of $12.3 million and a box office of $584.5 million, which is just, it's fucking nuts.
One of the only times I've ever seen that amount of return was like the original Mad Max. I think it was like for the price of a house. It was like $200,000.
Yeah.
And it made like $200 million.
Yeah.
Which is like, Jesus Christ.
I mean, I think the most cost-effective movie was the Blair Witch Project because it cost, I don't know how much it made, but it cost
They filmed it on a
$50,000 to make.
camcorder.
What? Wow. Okay.
But the movie was actually the first feature-length film directed by the director of this, which is his name is Emile Ardolino.
Mm-hmm.
So he also directed an Academy Award-winning documentary called "He Makes Me Feel Like Dancin'," which was about a famous ballet star. I'm not gonna try pronouncing his name because I'll butcher it. But
Jacques d'Amboise.
I had to do the Russian names last week.
But he also
it's Jacques d'Amboise. I'm pretty sure.
I think that's better than I would have done. But he also directed The Sister Act. So it's a very weird, sort of spectrum of movies that he did.
I mean, they're all about dancing, right?
That's not what The Sister Act is about. Like, it's been a while since I've seen it, but
I thought it was like a nun musical. Am I wrong?
It's Whoopi Goldberg pretending to be a nun. For
what?
There's some the mob is after her,
as happens.
Something.
That's no Whoopi Goldberg.
Thank you for that. So when they were casting the movie, one of the things that the director specifically wanted was having dancers that could also act, because they sort of cited Flashdance as being an example of that going wrong, where they would have characters where the actors wouldn't be dancing and they wouldn't show them from the neck up sort of thing. So it's like, oh, well, it's them in air quotes,
right,
sort of thing. And that's how they actually ended up getting Patrick Swayze, since he did have experience with ballet. He worked at the Joffrey Ballet Company. But some of the other potential actors that they considered for the role of Johnny were Billy Zane, Val Kilmer, and Benicio del Toro.
Dude, I would have watched the shit out of
One of those things is not like the other.
Shit, it would have been tight.
Yeah, but one of the other things that I saw was that it's Jennifer Grey who plays Baby.
Sure.
Yes.
So she was also in Red Dawn, and one of the things I thought was interesting was that her and Patrick Swayze didn't have a good dynamic on the filming of that. But it was when they did the screen testing for this, they had them dance together and they were like, oh, they have such good chemistry. This is perfect casting.
That's cool.
So
it really was their dancing and their body language was really...
It was excellent. Yeah.
Yeah, because we're both staring at both actresses, and not just Patrick Swayze.
She had hungry eyes.
Sure. But the soundtrack for this, it ended up getting 2 multi-platinum albums. The song I've Had the Time of My Life won an Academy Award, a Golden Globe, and a Grammy, which is that's pretty much unheard of. You never hear of many songs doing that. But another fun, I guess, tidbit, if you want to call it that. The choreography was done by Kenny Ortega, who we've talked about in the past on this podcast. He did the choreography for Xanadu, Newsies, and High School Musical. So
cool.
Those other choreographies were not nearly as horny, though. He dialed it back.
I mean, I know Newsies, bro. You see those kids with their little
who was the fucking
Peaky Blinder hats?
Who was the vaudeville singer lady?
Oh yeah. No, we're not going to talk about that.
But this movie actually went on to spawn like an entire franchise, which some of these things I knew about, some of them I had never, I guess, been aware of. But they actually did a TV series like the year after the movie came out. They did a prequel set in the like pre-Cuban Revolution era with Diego Luna, which is also like very popular. Like my sister loved that growing up. We'll talk about like our history with this in a bit, but they did a stage adaptation, which makes sense. They did a TV remake in 2017, which was panned critically. I mean, because this is sort of a hard act to follow, but they're also going to be doing a sequel that's currently in development that will have the lead reprising their role in it.
But Patrick Swayze's dead.
Well, not him.
Well, like, okay, this concept, it's a corny fucking movie. Like, I don't know, I just feel like this concept could easily have been bad, but you had there's a magic sometimes that's injected into a movie, and it's just like, Dirty Dancing had that magic. I do not count at all that any of its sequels or prequels or whatever the fuck you make is going to have that magic. I don't think it will.
Diego Luna, though.
He's great,
He's
but
a
like,
fine man.
It wasn't just Patrick Swayze that made. Anyway, we'll talk about it. But
fun thing. Patrick Swayze is in Havana Nights. He has a cameo as a dance teacher. And they paid him like $3 million for like a bit part.
That must be a quarter of the budget.
Yeah.
But with all of that out of the way, what's y'all's history with this movie? Had you seen it before we did this for the podcast, or?
I saw it. I was on a business trip and I didn't have a whole lot to do. And like a local theater was doing throwback movies. It was between sitting on a cot in my office or seeing this movie that I'd heard of before. So I was like, whatever, I'll see this classic movie. And then I was entranced. This was a delightful movie, and I was cheesing and smiling. Just a delightful time.
I did not have history. This is the first time I watched it. Like, all the dancing movies of the 80s just blended together, like, in my head of not seeing any of them. Like, Flashdance, Footloose, Dirty Dancing. I hadn't seen any of them. Like, I like to watch a lot of movies, but somehow I haven't seen those. And I didn't really know what was in this movie. Like, I've had the time of my life. I'd heard that song a bunch. I basically just knew pop culture references to this movie.
Family Guy.
Swayze. Family Guy for sure. Yeah. And like, somebody said Nobody Puts Baby in a Corner to me. And I was like, oh yeah, from what is that, $1 Million Baby? And they're like, no. So, yeah.
So for me, I think just by virtue of having an older sister, this was one of the movies that was on rotation pretty regularly. I think she liked Havana Nights a bit more because Diego Luna, fine man. But yeah, it was one that like I never sat through the entire thing. So like seeing it from beginning to end, this is the first time I had done that. There's a lot of plot points that we'll get into that I was not aware of. Being like a pretty heavy like topics for the time, but yeah, we'll get into that. But I'm going to kick things over now to Etherben for the synopsis.
So the movie opens in the summer of 1963 with a voiceover from the main character, Baby, on how it's a time of innocence before Kennedy was shot. It's still America's in the cultural sense of the 50s where everything's all bright and sunny. So she's bright-eyed and optimistic, and she's planning on going to the Peace Corps after college. So she's vacationing with her sister Lisa, her mother, and honestly, the best character of the movie, her father, played by Jerry Orbach, better known as Lumiere from Beauty and the Beast, which I did not know.
When I saw that, I was like, holy shit. Like, you don't hear it at all.
Nope.
Yeah.
He's not a horny Frenchman in this movie, which is surprising considering how horny this movie is. And they're in an all-inclusive resort in southern New York. So I kind of like this opening that, like, she's very bright-eyed, and it's kind of... I guess, overdone now, but like, oh, you know, I have good intentions, but I'm naive. Now I'm going into the world.
She even makes a comment like, back then everyone called me baby, and like in retrospect that's a little weird. And she even comments on it.
I appreciated that.
Yeah.
So once they settle in, she's exploring the resort one night, and Baby sees the owner of the resort talking to the waiters, and they're all Ivy League students. So they go to like Harvard, Cornell, Yale. And he's telling them to romance the guest daughters, even if they're unattractive. I think he says like talk to them even if they're dogs. Which what a different time.
Yeah,
it's the '60s, you know.
It was a better time for women, not necessarily.
Yeah, I love like whenever shows or whatever go like, the '50s and the '60s. What a nice time. Why can't we go back to those times?
Let's just ignore like half of what was going on.
They're all white, aren't they? Oh no.
But he's also demeaning the lower class performers of the staff, including Johnny Castle, which, by the way, great name.
Yeah.
Played by the man, the myth, Patrick Swayze. And they're all troublemakers. And he tells them not to get mixed up with the guest.
So, okay. I thought this was a really weird introduction to Patrick Swayze. Like, I felt like later on, I'm sure we'll get there in the synopsis, he's introduced through dancing. But it's after this scene.
Yeah.
So this is a weird time to be like, oh, look, here's Patrick Swayze just kind of bumming around with the other waiters. Like, why wouldn't you introduce him in a dance where nobody's talking and he's mysterious and sexy, and then like, you know, he says one word and people are like, woo.
Yeah.
Like, that seems like such a stronger introduction than this part. Like, I don't know.
Well, he's a bad boy. We got to establish that.
You could establish that when he's dancing with the baddest bitch at the party and like everybody moves out of his way when he starts dancing, you know? And less is more.
Yeah.
I don't know. It threw me a little bit.
Also, I noticed that the upper class waiters are all white and they're respected by management. And then the performing staff is kind of poor and also has minorities and they're not respected. But this has no social commentary, as my uncle on Facebook has told me. Woke movies were invented by the Disney Corporation in 2015.
This is true.
Back when movies were not political. It's like when you were watching, what was it, Grapes of Wrath? And it was just like, aren't the plight of the poor immigrants awful? And I was like, man.
Yeah, it's almost like you could draw allegories. But luckily, movies were not tainted by agendas back then.
Thank God. So the guests go to a boring dance. And they're like doing awkward foxtrots like, honestly, I did in Cotillion in 6th grade. Until Johnny and his partner Penny go to the dance floor, and they have this high energy dance, and it dazzles and wows everyone.
Oh my God. Like this, and I mean, this is like a through point for like pretty much every like big dance throughout the movie. Like, it's just insane. Like the choreographer, like this was a little bit later in his career, because I want to say the first thing he choreographed was Xanadu, which was like sort of weirdly shot, and it looked like you were looking at a stage show but like on a screen. Whereas this, like, they just nailed it. It just, all of it just so
it really dominates.
Oh yeah,
like anytime any of the choreography and the dancing is happening, it's like it's absorbing. Like the movie, like the plot and everything just falls away, and like it's
this
it's
movie
elegant,
kind of had the structure of a musical to me, because there's dance breaks and like all the big exciting things are just songs, and the characters aren't singing it. And it's like, you know, just played over them, but it's still like you can do the beats of this movie to the songs that are going on.
And you'd have like some kind of plot injection that fuels the next kind of like encounter between Baby and Pet and Johnny and or whatever. But that seems like it's in the background compared to the dancing and everything, which is how it should be in a movie like this.
Yeah.
So then Baby's father tries to set her up with the owner's grandson, Max, since he's going to be a successful hotel owner. But he's boring, and like all his charm boils down to is saying that he's wealthy. He's like, I'm going to inherit this hotel. I'm going to an Ivy League. I'm going to be real cool someday.
I'm going to be honest, though, like, of all the men in this movie, like, aside from Patrick Swayze, obviously, but, like, he's the, like, and the dad, he's the least creepy. Because, like, the other ones they introduce are, like, sort of skeevy, you know?
There's Robbie, who's a big piece of shit.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's not, like, aggressively, like, hitting on anyone.
Yeah, and so,
that's
like,
a real high bar you put to him.
But that's what I'm saying is, like, I don't know, it would have been easy to just be like, oh, he's a creep like that, too. And, like...
Yeah.
I mean, he's trying, just not well.
Yeah, but, like, I don't know, there's this... I won't jump ahead, but yeah.
So after that, Baby wanders off, and she sees one of the entertainment staff named Billy, and he's struggling to juggle some watermelons. So she says, "Let me help you with one of that."
Weird. Yeah, I don't know. Who's bringing watermelons to a fucking dance party?
Right.
That was so random. Why wasn't it like booze?
Next party we have
it was
3
just,
watermelons.
Anyway, I don't know. It was just a weird choice.
But she's able to convince him to take her to the working stiffs party, and it's against objections. He's going like, no, you're the guest. You're not supposed to get mixed up with us. She's like, but I'm going to help you carry a watermelon, and I'm an attractive young woman. He is like, I didn't think about that. So at the party, she sees the staff engaging in dirty dancing.
Oh!
Trademark.
Much like Titanic taught us, poor people dancing really is the most fun a wealthy young woman can have.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she's just overwhelmed that poor people have so much more enjoyment in their life. And it is a very horny scene. Like, people are straight up grinding on each other.
So something that I think the thing that bothered me the most about this movie, like it's kind of nitpicky, but okay, the movie opens and closes with a slow black and white replay of this scene of them dancing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like
I thought when I was watching it that it was something they like added for a re-release, and I was like, that's a weird decision.
Yeah.
It's like, no, that's just how it is.
It was bizarre. And we talked about the intro where baby's driving in her car and everything, but even before that, there was like the title crawl and the introduction of the actors and the actresses and the names.
Yeah.
And it was just slow motion black and white dancing of a scene in the movie already. So you're getting this this atmosphere spoiled a little bit with that, and then you're getting it rehashed to you at the end. And the music didn't match at all. Like, the music in this scene fit with the dirty dancing.
Yes, yeah.
And it was red light and smoky and dim, and it felt grungy and like, yeah, this is dirty dance. Like, cool. And then before it was like doo-wop. Like, it was so fucking, what a weird choice, and I really didn't like it. But this party scene is well done.
Yeah.
This just reminded me, have you ever seen Dewey Cox?
No.
Yeah.
When he's like, he's starting at a club where he first sings, and like the performer has his hands broken and he can't play the guitar. And then one of the club's like, God damn it, people come here to dance erotically.
Yeah.
And that is exactly like the one-to-one thought I have.
But I did love the set. Like, it just, you feel like you like smell the sweat, like in this room.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, Matthew, but like, you really like Saturday Night Fever.
Yeah.
This really gave me that kind of feeling that I had.
Yeah.
Where it's like that escapist dancing that to these people that are kind of grosser to society, like, oh, they're the lower class. But then when they get on this dance floor, it's like they're fucking gliding and like ethereal with that like smoke and the light and the moves and how they interact with their partners and everything. They don't even seem like everything else about them melts away, and they're just like this raw fucking dancer. Like, I really like this scene, and it reminded me of that.
So eventually, Baby has an awkward dance with Johnny after he tells her, like, hey, me and Penny, we're just childhood friends. And like, they're just dry humping on each other.
Yeah, for real.
It's not even dancing. But the next day, Penny is missing from a dance class that she's supposed to instruct. So the owner's grandson, he tries flirting with Baby again. He's like, I can get you all the ice cream you want. Which, like, very charming, but it's kind of less so when he's like, my grandfather can get you all the ice cream you want, and I have access to that. I've never been courted by old money, so I don't know if that's charming or not. But while they're in the kitchen looking for ice cream, Baby finds Penny, and she's crying in the corner. She gets Johnny, who comes to console her. She tells him that she's pregnant with one of the waiters, Robbie. She thinks he's the father. Billy says that he knows a doctor who will be available in a week, but only for one day. And he'll perform an abortion, but only for $250, which is about $2.5K in like modern money. So pretty rough for, people who are in the serving industry. I was very surprised when I first saw this, because I thought it was like, oh, it's like a wacky, toned down sex comedy like American Pie, and then they're doing this very serious turn.
Yeah, no, I was shocked. Like, that is so like, well, it's topical now, obviously. Like, but I was sort of blown away. Like, that's a pretty bold thing to do in a movie in the 80s, like, especially. But,
a movie in the 80s set in the 60s.
Yeah.
And it's not just set dressing. Like, this is the entire reason why Baby starts dancing. Like, it's a very significant part of the plot. Her father comes into this plot point and everything, and it's like, it's not in the background at all, and it's not something that you could just pull out of the movie and then not have it controversial. Like, it's ingrained in there.
And like they could have done a much, I don't know, less controversial thing. Penny's like, oh, I rolled my ankle. I need someone to cover for me.
Right.
But nope, they have a serious social discussion.
And she has like a character progression from this and like an arc a bit. So I respect it a lot.
Yeah.
So the next day, Baby asks Robbie to help pay for the abortion and clean up his responsibility. But she says like, she's a floozy. I think he says she's getting balled by all kinds of people. So it's not his problem. And also he says, quote, some people matter and some don't. He then recommends The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand, which is just like, that is the best joke in the movie to me. I like in the theater, and when I rewatched it with Ben, I broke out laughing.
Can you explain The Fountainhead just briefly?
So The Fountainhead is Ayn Rand's main piece about objectivism, which is basically like doing anything selfless is stupid. It's just like very raw capitalism that you only do what benefits you, and like helping other people doesn't make sense. So, and it's like well worn. He's like, I have notes in the margins. And it's just like, chef's kiss, no notes, perfect joke. So after she realizes that Robbie's not going to be a grown-up about this, she goes to her father and asks to borrow the money. And she's like, hey, you said if anyone's ever in trouble, I can come to you. And she doesn't elaborate and just like takes the money. So later,
it's like, damn, my dad. If I asked my dad for $2.50,
in that era's money,
no,
like $2.50 today. He'd be like, for what? And it's just like, wait, you want $2.50K, baby? Anything for my darling. It's just like, goddamn.
Because he's the best character in the movie.
This is true.
So then Johnny, Penny, and Billy, they get the money, but they're unimpressed of the courage. Because like, well, it takes a lot of stones to ask a rich daddy for help, which I can understand. I've had richer friends, and like, well, I was able to fix this problem. It's like, well, yeah, of course you were. Must be nice. But they end up being reluctant about taking the money because if Penny misses its upcoming gig at another hotel, they won't be hired for the next year. So then Baby agrees to fill in with her, and we begin a classic 80s training montage to Hungry Eyes, which is...
Hungry Eyes.
Which, like, if you are just, like, unsure, you're just listening to our podcast but haven't seen the movie but want to know about it, just look up Hungry Eyes, Dirty Dancing. You'll get the gist of the movie.
Yeah, basically.
But it is probably some of my 5 favorite minutes of movies.
You could put it over Rocky training with Apollo Creed, basically the same thing, you know?
I mean, and it's like Patrick Swayze is shirtless and Baby is in like a sports bra and short shorts.
Well, I've heard that comparison, that like Rocky 3, I think of specifically when he's training with Apollo.
Yeah.
Like that's... with that montage of like Eye of the Tiger, whatever they play, right?
Yeah,
it's the same exact vibe. It's just like Rocky is for men and like Dirty Dancing is like a montage for women, but at the same time, like both are incredible.
Yeah.
Like both do the exact same thing where it's like, oh, they're sloppy. You need to pick up your fucking pace, kid, or you need to do this better. And then they're like, oh, and they're toughing it out, and then they get good, and then the trainer's like, oh, all right, I see you. And then like fucking, then the trainee is like, you're messing up, trainer. Yeah, and then they make out. Absolutely.
There's also a scene.
Apollo and Rocky are running on the beach together and embrace shirtless.
That's a deleted scene.
That's them making out.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a scene here where Patrick Swayze, like, he's shirtless and Penny's just in a sports bra. And he, like, brushes his hand down her arm and, like, down her torso, and she keeps breaking out laughing. That wasn't acting. That was her laughing, and Patrick Swayze's look of, like, frustration, like, oh my god, that is a real reaction.
Hell yeah. Well, and this movie does take any excuse to take Patrick Swayze out of his shirt.
Good God, thank you. Like, we were complaining that it wasn't sexy enough last movie.
Oh, this one's sexy. I said, show me your nipples, coward. I think I said that word for word. And he delivered.
But after that, we have a second montage to She's Like the Wind, performed by Patrick Swayze, because truly...
I didn't know that. I did not know
I didn't know that until I was, like, writing up the script for this podcast, and I was, like, listening to the Dirty Dancing soundtrack on my phone, because, like, you know, thematic. And I looked down and I was like, oh, these performers... Patrick? What?
Yeah, he's a fucking Swiss Army man.
God. If only he's a Swiss Army man for all of us. Good God. But with that second montage, She's Like the Wind, and they're trying to practice lifts. Like, it's very iconic. If you've seen any scene in this movie, he's lifting baby up from like her hips over his head,
Mm-hmm.
and they're trying to practice that in water. And it's also very exciting because she's wearing a white shirt and it's very see-through.
Yeah, and I don't think she's wearing a bra. What do you think?
No.
Yeah.
No.
It didn't look like she was.
I'm sorry, good listeners, if you thought we were respectable gentlemen, but we all have basic
so
issues.
here's the thing. I'm a bit of a prude. Like, I don't know, this probably hasn't come across in any of the previous podcasts, but this one, like, teeters on, like, what I find acceptable, like, anymore, and it's like, okay,
it's
like,
a bit excessive.
we've crossed the line.
I mean, it's PG-13.
Yeah.
That's wild. The grinding is a little much. I'm like with you a little bit on like some of that dancing. It's like, all right, I get it. It's fucking dirty dancing. Yes. These, like, somebody stop the cameras rolling before these kids just strip. Like, it's getting fucking aggressive.
I'll side with you there, because if I watched this with, like, my mom, I would feel physically uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Part of this montage, though, Johnny breaks into his car. He, like, locks his keys in, and he, like, kicks a fence post out and just bashes in a window.
Yeah, it's a nice car.
Yeah.
I was kind of confused why that was in there. But it's also raining during this, and he asked Baby if she's getting wet. And I looked over at Ben and was like, what a stupid question. Look at you.
Yes, Johnny, I am.
So after a second like, it's literally back to back. Like, they finish Hungry Eyes and they're like, I want to learn how to lift. And it's like, bet, kid. Second montage. I mean, it's not as bad as like Rocky 4, where they added a montage where it's literally clips from the other movies because they're like, fuck, this has to be 90 minutes.
Damn, that's the worst montage of all time.
So when they finally do the performance, there's some errors, but it's overall successful. But they don't do the lift. And while they return to the resort, and also Baby changes in the back of Patrick Swayze's car, and he sneaks a couple sneaky looks in the back mirror.
Oh, Patrick.
Oh, you rascal. But they return, and once again, the movie becomes serious, because Penny's in bad shape because the abortion went sideways. And it says, like, oh, I thought it was a real doctor, but it was a guy with, how'd they say it? A dirty knife and a fold-out table.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. I was like, oh my fuck.
Yeah.
So Baby gets her father to help, and he treats her. She's like, Dad, I really need your help. I can't really say why. And he's furious at Baby for the deception and assumes that Johnny is the father.
He's a total Chad, though. When she's like, I need you to come, like, something's fucking going on. He's just like, I know. Like, I'll go with you. Takes fucking doctor bag and runs up there.
Yeah,
it's
and
like,
even once he realizes what's wrong, it's like, you know, this is a bad situation, but someone needs help.
Yeah.
And, like, her father's very angry at her. We were sitting with a buddy, and he was like, I don't get it. Why is Baby's father mad at her? And we're like, Ryan, no matter how pro-choice you are, if your daughter was hanging out with people who had back alley abortions,
right,
you would be displeased.
Yeah, you're like, you are 17, madam. Get back in the fucking house.
We're learning the sock hop.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
So Baby sneaks back to Johnny to apologize how her father treated him. And then Johnny says, no, it makes sense. Like, I'm poor. I'm nothing. You know, my people are expendable. But this time he's impressed because, like, hey, baby, that took a lot of guts.
Yeah.
Which I agree. Like, asking daddy for money with, like, no details, that's one thing. But saying, like, I need you to fix an abortion is, it takes some stones. I'll give her that. But then she says, like, no, Johnny, you're worth something. You're hot. She doesn't say that, but it's implied. And then they sleep together, which, one of those times you yell in a movie, like, you see two people making out, like, why can't that be me? I wasn't talking about, why can't I make out with Baby? Why can't I make out with Patrick Swayze shirtless?
So this is when Baby goes to his house, right? And, like, they're in his... Okay, so I noticed that on his wall, he only had one piece of artwork. It was just, like, a matador, like, teasing a bull. And I'm like, that seems like it's a very blatant, like, choice to put right behind Patrick Swayze the whole time. But, like, what is Baby the bull? Like, is he a matador? Is he a bull? Like, what are we going for here? Like, why did you choose that to be his character's artwork choice?
Because
Like,
he likes living dangerously.
I don't know. I thought if y'all had input on like the metaphor. I didn't see it. I was just like, why is that there? Okay.
Well, like, because I don't know, she goes in there and he's like trying to fumble and like clean it up his fucking
Shirtless,
room or
of
whatever.
course.
Oh, I mean,
Yeah.
If you look like Patrick Swayze, you'd be shirtless all the time.
Sure. What's that? No, but like, and then the lighting changes like randomly. Like he just has like a red Chinese lantern that I guess he turns on when he's getting lucky. And like right when they start like really getting more physical, then like the red light comes in, and then it focuses on like this Chinese lantern. And I was like, oh, that's new. Like that light wasn't there before when they turned that on. But red light, that's what they used when they were dirty dancing. It's like they're dirty dancing all over again.
Well,
kind of dirty dance.
Yeah, it's from the red light
Dirty Love
district.
Dance.
Because railroad workers, when they were visiting prostitutes in the Old West, would take their lanterns and put them outside.
Oh, I know. Red is danger. Red is spicy.
the bull fighting a bull. Dangerous.
Oh, the red cape.
But with
We
sex?
found it. Absolutely. Yeah, you have sex with the bull.
Oh, wow.
Now I get it.
So back at the resort, an older woman propositions Johnny, which, come on, who wouldn't?
Mm-hmm.
Her husband is also, like, on board with it. Like, he gives him some money. He's like, make sure to get my wife extra dancing lessons. Just hands him a wad of money.
Did we miss the part, or is it later when he's like, I'm a victim. They use me.
That's
like,
later.
Okay.
Johnny rejects being prostituted because now he has feelings for Baby. And they meet up later in the cabin. And they sleep together, and that's when that happens.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
She's asked the dumbest question in the movie. She's like, Johnny, have you been with other women? First of all, very mean to ask someone in his mid...
Mm-hmm.
He looks like he's in his late 20s, but he's actually in his mid 30s.
Yeah, don't
Be
like too hard about that.
Are you... Yeah. But asking someone like in their late 20s, are you a virgin? Very mean. Second, it's like, really? You don't think Johnny Castle, this man in incredible shape,
Look at me.
with incredible charisma?
Did you see me dance? Did you hear me sing? She's like the wind. Have I ever had sex? This bitch.
And then, yeah, like Matthew said, he's like, well, you know, these women just throw themselves at me. Like, all kinds. Like, they're slipping me their hotel keys.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the victim. She's like, hell yeah.
Weird flex, but okay.
Right. They keep slipping diamond earrings in my pockets. I think he says something like that.
I was like, I had a buddy that during his whole phase, like, you don't get it. Sometimes I mixed up two girls' names and I would say the wrong thing during sex. I was like,
damn.
You seem to be mistaken. That's actually hilarious. Not actually a sad story. But then you learn that the older woman was settling with Robbie, the scumbag who got Penny knocked up. And she sees Baby leaving Johnny's cabin. And she is just incensed that she didn't get a piece of the Swayze. And she accuses him of stealing her husband's wallets. And
what a hoe.
Yeah.
And then later, Robbie goes up and makes fun of Johnny for being poor.
She's good titties, though. Her big plump. She's older, but look good.
But Johnny goes and makes fun of, or Robbie goes and makes fun of Johnny for being a poor thief and gets his shit rocked.
Mm-hmm.
I think me and Ben were yelling at the screen, kill him.
Yeah. He's just like, and Patrick Swayze, I saw real fury in his eyes. He's like, he just fucking leaps over the balcony and just beats his ass. I'm like, yeah! That was sick.
I mean, it would have lost the PG-13 rating, but if he put his, like, jaw on a step and just falcon punch the back of his head.
This is what I mean by, like, this is a corny-ass script, but, like, Patrick Swayze just, like, elevates it. Like, his acting in that was really convincing. I'm like, oh, he's pissed.
Yeah.
So then to protect Johnny, Baby admits to being with him all night to give him an alibi. It's like he couldn't have stolen the wallet because I was with him. Johnny is still fired for this because of relation with the guest. And then Johnny tries to talk to Baby's father and tells him how he feels for Baby, but he's rebuffed. And I'd fully side with, like, her father on this.
Yeah, for sure.
He's like, you don't understand how I feel. Like, you don't understand about me. Stay away from my daughter.
Yeah.
You got a girl in a situation and sent her to a butcher. Get out of my sight.
Well, and, like, Patrick Swayze, I think we said it, but, like, he took the blame for, like, who would have been the father? And then Patrick Swayze's like, me.
Yeah.
And so the dad is like, all right, so you're a sleazebag. So then when that guy's like, but I want to be with your daughter now. It's like, no, fuck you. I saw the last girl you were with. So her dad fucking hates him.
And I love, there's like this, I don't know if you want to call it a throwaway line, but like it's Baby's sister and the other guy, Robbie.
Robbie.
They're like walking and talking with the dad. And Baby's sister's like, oh, so what happens once we like, stop what's going on in Vietnam? Like, do they go to China next? And it's like, bruh.
Yeah.
I was sure she was dumb because she was like, well, Vietnam's already communist. What happens when China gets flipped? It's like, oh, you silly goose. China's the communist one. Vietnam's the one in flux right now.
Did we? So, like, we talked about Baby saying, like, no, Johnny didn't steal the wallet because I was with him overnight. There's a scene following that where her dad is, like, at the lake, just, like, looking at a lake in his little lawn chair and, like, not talking, and he's fucking, like, pissed. Because, like, when the movie starts, this movie is mainly just about Baby becoming an adult and not being a baby anymore. It's very on the nose, right?
Yeah.
But it's like the father is the most resistant to that, which I think is a great fucking arc for her father to be going through. It seems relatable to fathers, and like, so I think he's like him processing that of hearing that his daughter like is not like quote unquote pure, whatever you want to say, right? But that's just that she's with people now.
Yeah.
And him processing that, he's like, this is not my baby anymore. And then her going to her dad and being like, I wasn't honest with you, but you're not honest with me either. And like, the tears that both of them are crying.
I'm like,
that was one of the best scenes in the movie.
Absolutely.
She was saying like, you always told me to like help people in need, but I feel like you only want to help people who look and act like you.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh,
yeah,
this wacky teen comedy got a serious talk about classes.
And like her dad is doing a good put on, or just the actor is so fucking good though. Like he's doing a good put on of like being the frustrated father and like, you're mad at you. But then like what she's saying is fucking like breaking his heart. And when she's crying, like he's fucking like
he's struggling.
Moved. Yeah. It's like, God damn, that was so good. This scene was fucking mint.
One of the other, I guess, subplots that we haven't really touched on is like Baby and her sister sort of like having this dynamic of like jealousy a little bit where like her sister's like, oh, I'm the favorite now because like you fucking her.
She was the baby.
Yeah. And then after she finds out that Robbie was banging that older lady, she's like, oh shit, like no, like you were right. Because at one point Baby like warns her and is like, don't fuck around with that guy, like he's a dirtbag, and she just doesn't listen.
So then we get to the end of the season talent show. Baby's father, or no, before this, there's another scene we skipped over where it's where Baby and Johnny are still getting together, and they have a dance to what is it? Be My Little Baby, which I think I was watching with Ben. And he was like, "This is just softcore porn now."
Yes, 100%. They're like, it's not Be My Little, it's not Be My Little Baby. It's like, Are You My Baby or something like that. No, but the song is incredibly sexual. And like, she goes behind a changing, like, what's that called? Like a wardrobe that like cover,
yeah, no,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she goes behind that, and Patrick Swayze's like on his knees, and they're both lip syncing the words that are like horny already.
And she's like crawling on her hands and knees to him.
Yeah, it's just like, all right, fucking chill.
And putting a hat on a hat.
No, they do play Be My Little Baby, and I wanted to talk about that because like I mentioned at the very beginning, the introduction is that black and white slow-mo, but it's to Be My Little Baby by the Rockettes.
Yeah.
And that is like an iconic opening to Martin Scorsese's first movie, Mean Streets, where it's like a flashback in a vintage kind of lens of like people like living and being happy to that song. Yeah. Which is very Scorsese. Like when you have like montages of old looking film to a music number that's very happy. That's just very Scorsese. Yeah. But that movie was in 73 and this was in 87. So I'm wondering if there was any influence there because it's so stylistic. Yeah. And it didn't fit at all. Like we talked about how that just like, it's a reused scene. Why do that? And then they whenever you put that song over a montage at the beginning of the movie, you're going to incite what Scorsese did. And it's just a weird thing to emulate in this movie. But
so I looked it up. It's Love is Strange.
Okay.
But after this very sexual scene, the owner's grandson, Max, comes in and is like, we're going to make some changes to the end of the year talent show. And I don't think we're going to need you to be dancing, mister, because he's just kind of pissy because he's been absolutely cucked by Patrick Swayze, as all of us would, honestly. But he's just like, ooh, I'm going to get you. And Swayze's like, ooh, but...
Well, I appreciate that Swayze's not just like...
He does such a great job, Patrick Swayze, in this scene where, like, he talks about making changes to the finale, and he's like, oh, like I have like all these really cool ideas that we can do for that. And he's like, no, we're not fucking doing any of that. And it's like the frustration, like you just feel that in that scene.
Where he's
really
like,
good.
oh, wait, I've been studying a Cuban style dance and we can spice it up. He's like, no, we're going to do the merengue and you're going to shut up and do it. And then, but, that comes through a lot with Swayze's acting and just his character, that like, he's not just like, oh, I like doing dancing as a hobby. Also just that this is his life. And if he's not doing this, it's not just like, I can't be who I need to be. No, like I'm waiting tables and I'm struggling to live. Like this, like I work minimum wage. I'm just a pretty face that can dance. And if I'm not dancing, I'm just a fucking unskilled laborer like everybody else. And I'm struggling and I'm back in it. And it's just like, damn.
Yeah.
So then we go to the end of the season talent show. And Baby's father is giving Robbie a letter of recommendation for Yale Medical School. And then Robbie says, like, hey, thanks for cleaning up that mess with Penny. And that clears Johnny of any guilt. And then he says a joke. I forget the exact line, but it's basically like, women, am I right? And then Baby's father, because he's the best character, grabs back the recommendation letter. And he's just like, oh, you're a scumbag. Gross. Please don't practice medicine. And then Johnny arrives and he says the iconic line, nobody puts Baby in a corner, which I was super underwhelmed by. Because when I told people I was watching this movie, they were like, oh yeah, no one puts Baby in a corner.
Well, and I definitely, when people said that to me, I didn't think they went literally. But they put her in like the corner of like a room. And it was like, nope, don't put her in the corner.
It's
and
weird.
Like,
it's a weird line, but like it is iconic.
There's no build up to it. Patrick Swayze just like walks up and he's like, no one puts Baby in a corner. And there's like, okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
This whole part, no, because it's like a talent show. Like imagine if you have a whole talent show. It's all scheduled and arranged. Dude shows up, leather jacket. He's like, nah, I'm doing the.
I'm hijacking this talent show.
It's like what?
But then he takes her on stage and he makes a speech about how she's made him a better person, and he taught him that people do care about like the lower class. And then they dance to I've Had the Time of My Life.
Okay, wait.
Again, this is just like Rocky IV, where it's like you fucking end with some big ass speech, and it's like, dude.
If I can change, you can change. No, like I want to talk about a scene I really appreciated in this part, where like the owner of the resort for the old people who are doing fucking sock hops and like Build-A-Baskets.
We haven't talked about this. Fucking Newman.
Yeah!
It says the fucking like announcer.
Yeah.
And he's always announcing the lamest things like, try on wigs. We're gonna do charades.
Right. So this is like the lamest fucking resort you could ever think of.
Yeah.
Like your grandparents probably wouldn't even want to go to this one. So the owner of the resort, like while this talent show is happening and they're being lame and doing a send-off that's really lame, he's like, damn, we're losing our people, right? Like this
they
is
all
an
want to go to
establishment.
Europe now.
Yeah, he's like, this is an establishment. We've been running it, but now it's fucking, we're global and we can't compete, and this way of life is just going to disappear and it's gone. And that's almost like a whole reflection on the fucking 60s if you're looking at it from the 80s.
Yeah.
Like the people in the movie theater would be. And I was just like, damn, this is some fucking really good commentary happening right now with that you didn't need to put in, but the fact that you did, I'm like, fucking respect. Like, I really, really appreciated those lines of dialogue between the owner, and then like it was an old aged what's the word? Conductor. Yeah, big band conductor, and that's like a time. Because like even the people in the 60s that this movie's showing are old, and they would have been from like the 40s.
Yeah.
So it's just like these generations just like withering away and like giving way to the new
he's talking about like we made
dancing and art.
We made it through the Depression, we made it through the war years, but we can't beat the future.
Right. Like and just a second ago we were just like, oh yeah, Swayze in a leather jacket at a talent show. And that's all you needed. But to put that extra effort and like commentary in there, I'm like, hell yeah. Like that is the stuff that elevates this movie and makes me feel like it deserved such a huge box office return. Not soulless like people like Dirty Dancing because they dance and Swayze's shirtless at the end. Do that. It's not just that. It's a lot of things.
You wouldn't pay $500 million to see Swayze shirtless?
He's got little nipples, little tiny ones, little just fucking like little pinpricks.
But then they dance to I've Had the Time of My Life, and the whole room dances in, and the old resort owner's like, boy howdy, we gotta change for this new kid music. And it's all very exciting.
Take a like you whatever fucking what's the Back to the Future thing?
Yeah, it's like
take a listen
that new
to
song
this.
or the new sound you've been looking for. Listen to this.
Yeah, it's basically that.
Yeah.
And then the movie ends, and everyone's like, "Hooray!"
So it's gonna be my headcanon that none of this happened. Like it's too fantastical and like wrapped up with a neat little bow that like, oh no, baby's dad isn't mad at her anymore because old stinky Robbie ratted himself out. And oh no, the old people don't win. Over all the old people love the new type of dance because it's great. And baby comes out and then her parents love her again. And it's just like too...
One of my favorite like sight gags they do is when they start dancing, there's like these two old women and at first they look like concerned, but then they stand up and start dancing together. I'm like, that's really cute.
Well, just that like if Patrick Swayze is hijacking this dance, how is every other dancer coordinating with him on like all this stuff? And of course, like, I'm not going to go there and be like, this movie's bad because I'm going to nitpick that. Like, no, choreography is incredible and I loved watching it. Like, this was a great scene, iconic, all that stuff. But
and she did the lift.
In my head,
she finally did
the lift. She did do the lift.
So
and that
good.
was good.
Payoff.
Payoff. But in my head canon, I'm just going to go with that didn't happen. Baby stayed in the corner in my head.
So what did y'all think of the movie overall?
This movie to me is absolutely delightful. I love it.
I think it surpassed what I was expecting for sure. I thought the legacy was just like the dancing. And that's what I thought the legacy was.
Yeah.
But it was so much more, and there were a lot of subtleties that like I don't expect people to talk about when they're reflecting on the movie. But I think unconsciously like know that this makes it special. And this movie does seem special. Like I do have a appreciation for this movie more than others I've watched, like Red Dawn. Like Red Dawn, I really don't need to watch again, but I could watch this again.
Yeah. So like the next thing I was gonna ask is like compared to Red Dawn, like I think we're all pretty much in agreement that this is much better than Red Dawn.
Yes.
Definitely.
Like, and granted, like Red Dawn, like I think has its place as like a, you know, very of its time, like, you know, whereas I feel like this in a weird way is like timeless.
I feel like the fact that it was put in a different time period than when it was shot makes it timeless, because the idea of like a young woman coming of age and like rebelling against her father is something that every generation is going to deal with. But the worry of like, what if the Soviets invade is a very like, that is a 1980s concern.
Yeah. And just to go with dancing terminology, this one really stuck the landing compared to like Red Dawn. Red Dawn was just a little too sloppy and a little too disorganized to like really mesh and come together at the very end there. But yeah, this one just was like so wrapped up. Every little corner they introduced got resolved and everything came full circle. And
Yeah, so I think that's going to do it for today's episode. If you enjoyed it and you're listening on YouTube, we'd really appreciate it if you'd like the video and subscribe to the channel. We'll be back next week to talk about 1989's Roadhouse, because I think technically that's the next one chronologically.
Sure. Never seen that?
I haven't, no. So I'm excited to finally understand what the hell they're talking about in Family Guy. So. Anyways, guys, until next time.
Like that realistic original ending to Dirty Dancing.
Nobody puts baby in a corner.
I do, because I'm her father and she's 16. What are you, like 38?
41.